Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a topic that really shapes our world.
Hmm.
We're talking about the pervasive issues of corruption in government and, well, deception by political leaders.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. And our mission here isn't just to look at the obvious consequences, the economic fallout or institutional decay.
Right.
We want to uncover the subtler stuff, the hidden implications, how these things actually keep cycles of ignorance, apathy, and disenfranchisement going.
And we're going to look at this from a pretty unique angle. We're weaving together the history, current events, socio-political stuff,
Yeah.
but also bringing in this fascinating thread of spiritual insights, sort of blending ancient ideas, divine principles with modern New Age thinking.
That really provokes something, right? A kind of reawakening of civic duty.
Exactly. Provoke some thought.
So the core argument we're exploring is this. Corruption, deception, public ignorance, they form this vicious cycle. But, and this is a hopeful part informed, collective action, especially action guided by these sort of timeless principles and maybe these newer awakenings that can break the cycle.
I absolutely can. There's a path forward.
So let's unpack corruption first. When we say corruption, it's way more than just, someone stealing money.
Much more.
At its heart, it's the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. That can be anything from straightforward bribery, nepotism, to manipulating elections or, quietly undermining the law.
And it thrives where accountability is weak, right? Where there's no transparency.
Precisely. You look at the 2024 Transparency International Index.
Yeah.
Places like Venezuela, Somalia, Yemen are ranked as severely corrupt. No big surprise there, maybe.
Right. Expected in some ways.
But what's really troubling is seeing trends in, say, the U.S. and Brazil, these advanced democracies, seeing trust in their institutions just decline.
Yeah, that decline is significant. And it's interesting how many traditions see this not just as politics gone wrong, but as something deeper, a kind of spiritual betrayal.
Spiritual betrayal. Tell me more about that.
Well, you connect it to bigger ideas.
Yeah.
Plato's Republic, for instance. He argued leaders putting self-interest first violate justice itself.
Okay.
Or Islamic teachings on amada trustworthiness.
Yeah.
Exploiting power is seen as defying a divine trust.
A sacred trust.
Exactly. And then you have some New Age perspectives where corrupt leaders are thought to, lower the collective energy, the vibration of a society.
Lower the vibration.
Yeah, and that attracts chaos, suffering, like an energetic blockage in the system caused by dishonesty at the top.
Wow, that's a powerful frame. Okay, let's look at the more obvious impacts, the stuff we see reported. The economic devastation in Nigeria, for example.
So staggering.
An estimated $400 billion in oil money just siphoned off since 1960. Millions left in poverty despite huge natural wealth.
Unbelievable.
Or social inequality. South Africa, state capture under Zuma. A few got rich. Unemployment hit 35%.
The gap just widened dramatically.
And institutional decay. Mexico. Cartels infiltrating police forces. It just perpetuates violence, impunity. It's deeply unsettling.
And if you look at those impacts through that spiritual lens again, they often point to what you might call a divine imbalance.
An imbalance.
Yeah, many traditions think of the Hindi idea of Rita, cosmic order, or the Christian call to care for the least of these. They see fairness, equitable sharing, as reflecting harmony.
Okay, so corruption disrupts that harmony.
Actively disrupts it by hoarding resources. It's a bit like the New Age idea that scarcity isn't natural. It comes from misaligned collective intention.
Right, and we see people pushing back against that. The protests, Nigeria's #embed governance, South Africa's marches against inequality.
Exactly. People are essentially calling out that imbalance, demanding a rebalancing of that energy, that fairness.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
What about the hidden impacts, the stuff that's maybe more insidious, less obvious?
Yeah, these are crucial, like the erosion of trust.
Okay, tell me about that.
Look at Italy.
Yeah.
Decades of political scandals, corruption. It fuels voter apathy. Turnout dropped to, 63% in 2022?
Yeah.
People just disconnect.
You feel that disconnection, yeah.
Then there's cultural normalization. In India, for instance, small bribes, speed money are often seen as just the way things work to get through bureaucracy.
It just becomes routine. Accepted.
Accepted, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the suppression of innovation. Think about Greece's debt crisis, partly fueled by corrupt spending, right?
Right.
That arguably held back technological progress for a whole generation. The focus wasn't there.
So trust, innovation, these are casualties too.
Absolutely. And from that spiritual angle, you could see trust and innovation as kinds of spiritual capital.
Spiritual capital. Interesting.
Think about Confucian ethics in. Trust is the glue holding society together, or the Quran praising knowledge, creativity as divine gifts.
So corruption is like desecrating those gifts.
In a way, yes, it erodes these vital human and spiritual resources. And New Age ideas resonate here too. Trust is a high-frequency, innovation is collective consciousness manifesting.
So when voters check out or bribery becomes normal?
It can be seen as a kind of low-frequency state, an acceptance of scarcity, a disconnection from that higher potential, that cooperative energy.
Okay, so corruption is the abuse of power. Let's talk about the active part, the deception leaders use.
The art of deception, yeah, it's often very sophisticated.
What kind of tactics are we talking about?
Well, you have classic propaganda and misinformation. Look at Russia, state-backed disinformation used to justify authoritarian moves, framing it as necessary.
Right, controlling the narrative.
Then there's populism and polarization. Brazil, under Bolsonaro, for example. Lots of divisive rhetoric on culture, which often drew attention away from, say, environmental issues in the Amazon.
Misdirection.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what you call performative governance, like in the UK, post-Brexit, promises clashing with rising inflation, but the challenges get framed as temporary or someone else's fault.
Managing appearances over substance?
Exactly. And it's striking how universally deception is seen as a violation of truth across belief systems.
A core violation.
Yeah. Divine principles everywhere exalt truth. The Bhagavad Gita talks about divine intervention when falsehood wins out. Jesus condemned hypocrisy. Authenticity is paramount. New Age philosophies echo this truth as a high vibrational state. Propaganda isn't just misleading, it's framed as energetic manipulation.
Energetic manipulation.
Yeah, like it actually distorts collective reality, pulls people away from clear perception, from universal consciousness.
And these leaders, they're tapping into our own psychology, right? Our biases.
Oh, absolutely. They leverage cognitive biases brilliantly, unfortunately.
Like confirmation bias.
Perfect example. Think of Viktor Orban in Hungary. Reinforcing supporters' existing anti-immigrant views, even if the economy isn't great, builds that unwavering loyalty. They hear what they already believe.
Right. Then there's the illusion of control.
Yes. Superficial reforms, like creating an anti-corruption task force that has no real power, like we've seen in Pakistan. It looks like action, but nothing changes, pretty much. And fear-mongering, of course. Turkey, post-2016 coup attempt. Erdogan's crackdowns, framed as vital for national security, maybe exaggerating threats to justify consolidating power.
Playing on fear, it's powerful.
It really is. And you could describe this kind of manipulation as a form of spiritual enslavement.
Enslavement? How so?
Well, think about Stoics like Epictetus, emphasizing mastering your own mind. Or Buddhist mindfulness, seeking clarity to resist delusion. Manipulation blocks that. It prevents free thinking, spiritual liberation.
People trapped.
Exactly. In New Age terms, it's sometimes called energetic vampirism, leaders draining vitality by stoking fear and division, creating these fear-based frequency traps.
Fear traps, keeping the collective spirit down.
Precisely, preventing it from flourishing.
And the consequences of all this deception? They're severe.
Huge. You see fragmented societies. The U.S. is a key example. Partisan misinformation fueling such deep distrust in basic things like elections.
It tears at the seams.
It really does. And global instability. North Korea's nuclear posturing, often seen partly as a way for Kim Jong-un to distract from domestic issues, but it risks massive regional conflict.
A dangerous game.
Very. And then maybe the most insidious, moral decay. When leaders constantly model dishonesty, it just erodes ethical standards everywhere. It weakens social cohesion from the inside out.
That fabric just unravels.
And this division, this fragmentation, it feels like a spiritual fracture.
A spiritual fracture.
Think about concepts like Ummah in Islam, the community, or Christian, calls for unity. Deception directly violates that principle of togetherness.
It drives wedges.
Absolutely. New Age theories see this division as a sign of low collective consciousness. Fear-based stories block our sense of oneness. You see people online talking about spiritual amnesia, forgetting we're connected.
Wow. Forgetting our connection.
Yeah. It's a call for, heart-centered dialogue to try and heal those divides. Like that big 2025 World Peace Prayer event online, millions trying to foster that unity.
So, if the problems are this deep, why do we let it happen? Why the silence, the passivity?
The million-dollar question.
Let's dive into that. The cost of silence. What drives public passivity?
Multiple things, really. Disillusionment is a big one. Look at Tunisia after the Arab Spring. Democratic hopes faded, turnout dropped. Repeated betrayals just foster apathy.
People give up.
They do. Economic precarity is huge, too.
Yeah.
In the U.S., 60% living paycheck to paycheck? Who has the energy or time for political activism when you're just trying to survive?
Yeah, basic needs come first.
And then information overload. Social media algorithms pushing sensationalism, burying the substantive stuff. It's hard to focus, hard to know what's real.
It's overwhelming.
Totally. And spiritually speaking, this passivity can look like spiritual dormancy.
Dormancy, like sleeping.
Kinda. The Talmud says, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Seek seva, selfless service, demands action for justice. Passivity is like shirking that higher duty.
So inaction is a spiritual failing.
In a way. New Age thought sees apathy as a low vibration state, blocking growth. You see online comments calling low turnout a soul-level retreat, urging people to activate their inner warrior.
Activate the warrior. I like that. Okay, what about ignorance? How does that play in?
Ignorance, willful or systemic, it massively amplifies corruption.
How so?
Well, educational deficits. Sub-Saharan Africa, 30% basic literacy gap. Hard to question authority if you can't fully engage with information.
True.
Media manipulation. China's internet censorship is a prime example. Obscuring failures fosters compliance. You don't know what you don't know.
Control the information, control the people.
Largely. And sometimes it's just cultural complacency. Even in stable places like Canada, people assume the system works, ignoring things like lobbying scandals until they're huge.
Taking things for granted.
Exactly. And many wisdom traditions see ignorance as spiritual blindness. Yeah. Know thyself, Socrates. The Quran urging people to read. There's a divine mandate to seek wisdom. New Age ideas frame ignorance as being cut off from universal knowledge, maybe by external control.
Like a veil over our intuition.
A good way to put it. A veil over the collective third eye, making it harder to see the truth.
And the toll of this inaction, this ignorance, it's profound.
Devastatingly so. Entrenched corruption. Lebanon, after the 2020 Beirut blast. Elite inaction just deepened the economic collapse. 80% poverty now.
Just heartbreaking.
Loss of agency. Belarus suppressed protests just cemented Lukashenko's grip. Citizens lost power.
Hope gets crushed.
And intergenerational harm. Zimbabwe youth unemployment over 70% after decades of mismanagement. Future generations inherit broken systems. Little hope.
Passing the burden down.
And when we neglect these duties, many traditions suggest there are spiritual consequences. A kind of cosmic debt.
Cosmic debt.
Think of karma in Hinduism. Neglecting duty binds the soul. Christian eschatology talks about being accountable for talents you don't use. Inaction accrues this debt.
Burdening the future.
Yeah. New Age thought might call it karmic residue, delaying a society's evolution, its ascension to a higher state.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. But we talked about hope. How do we break this cycle? How do we reclaim power?
Right, the solutions. It has to start with reclaiming civic power, active engagement.
Like what? What does that look like?
Grassroots mobilization. Hong Kong's 2019 protests showed incredible power, even against huge odds. Collective action matters.
People power.
Yes. Transparency, advocacy, supporting groups like the Open Government Partnership that push for accountability.
Holding feet to the fire.
And ethical voting. Simple, maybe, but powerful. Prioritizing integrity over just charisma. Choosing leaders who seem honest.
Making conscious choices.
Absolutely. And this civic engagement, it's a form of divine stewardship.
Stewardship, like taking care of something precious.
Exactly. The Jewish idea of tikkun olam, repairing the world. The Jain principle of ahimsa, non-harm through action. These aren't just political acts. They're seen as sacred duties.
Fulfilling a purpose.
Right. New Age views see it as co-creating with the universe. Collective intent manifesting change. A vibrational uprising.
Okay, besides engagement, what else? Knowledge seems key.
Empowering knowledge is critical. Education reform, look at Finland. Prioritizing media literacy from a young age. Teaching critical thinking.
Building skills for discernment.
Yes. Supporting independent media. Investigative outlets like ProPublica, Bellingcat, they bring truth to light, counter the spin.
Crucial work.
And for everyone listening, cultivating digital discernment. Actively verifying sources, questioning narratives. It protects your own mind.
Taking responsibility for what we consume.
Precisely. And knowledge, in its essence, is divine illumination.
Illumination. Like light.
Yeah. Athena's wisdom. The Vedic pursuit of jnana, enlightenment. The antidote to ignorance is always light, learning. New Age thought sees it as light activation, truth raising consciousness.
Like piercing the fog.
Exactly. Investigative reports are like beams of light cutting through.
What about bigger changes? Structural reforms.
Essential. You need strong anti-corruption frameworks. Independent bodies, like Singapore's Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau. Real teeth.
Independent oversight.
Electoral integrity. Transparent campaign finance, secure voting. Estonia's e-governance is an interesting model there. Restoring trust in the process.
Making democracy work.
And decentralized power. More local governance. Empowering communities reduces those elite monopolies, brings decisions closer to home.
Power to the people, literally.
Right. And these reforms are like building spiritual architecture.
Spiritual architecture, designing better systems.
Yeah, systems aligned with universal principles. Aristotle's politics, the Confucian ideal of harmony. New Age thought sees it as restructuring the energetic grid to support higher consciousness, building a blueprint for a better way.
So, bringing it all together, what's the payoff? Good governance, what does it actually get us?
Well, it connects directly to well-being. Prosperity.
Okay.
Look at nations with low corruption, New Zealand, for example. High GDP per capita, top happiness rankings. It's not a coincidence.
So less corruption equals more opportunity.
Generally, yes. Fair markets reward merit, foster innovation. Social equity improves inclusive policies, reduce inequality, strengthen communities.
And personal freedom.
Critical. Secure rights allow self-expression, fulfillment. People can actually thrive, not just survive.
And spiritually, this prosperity connects back.
Definitely. Many traditions see prosperity as divine abundance. Shinto utakasa, plenty. New Age ideas about universal flow. Prosperity is the natural state when things are in balance.
So corruption creates artificial scarcity.
Exactly. It disrupts the flow. Good governance acts like a channel for that abundance, making sure it circulates fairly.
And individual happiness ties into this, feeling empowered.
Absolutely. Happiness blooms when you feel you have agency. Rejecting passivity.
How? What can people do?
Cultivate community. Local stuff, urban gardens, mutual aid networks. Build resilience right where you are.
Grassroots action.
Demand accountability petitions, protests, voting. Make your voice heard. Shape policy.
Don't stay silent.
And pursue lifelong learning. Informed citizens drive progress.
Hello?
Stay curious, stay engaged.
That connects to fulfillment.
It really does. Individual action is spiritual fulfillment. Think Taoist Wu Wei, effortless action in flow. Christian call to bear fruit. Live your purpose.
Soul alignment.
Right. New Age concept action, aligning with your soul's purpose brings joy. Small acts, multiplied, create huge ripples.
So the big picture, a society free from this, what does it look like?
It means prioritizing shared prosperity.
Tangible examples.
Policies like universal basic income, tried in Finland, bold green energy transitions like in Denmark. These show collective action guided by integrity brings real benefits for everyone.
Unlocking potential.
Fostering trust, collaboration unlocks human potential, ensures well-being, happiness for all, not just a few.
And this collective vision.
It's divine co-creation, like the indigenous 7 generations thinking long-term view, the Baha'i vision of global unity.
Manifesting a better future.
Exactly. New Age calls it manifesting the new earth. Collective intent shaping reality into something more harmonious.
Okay, so wrapping this up. This deep dive, the main takeaway.
Well, it's clear, right? These perils, corruption, deception, they aren't inevitable.
They persist because we allow them to, through passivity, ignorance.
Largely, yes.
Yeah.
We've looked at the obvious costs: poverty, inequality, instability.
And the hidden ones, eroded trust, normalized dishonesty, stifled potential.
And how these violate those deep principles: justice, truth, unity, disrupting the energetic harmony needed for real collective well-being.
But there's hope, real hope, and it starts with us, each individual.
It has to. The momentum begins with each informed, empowered person, you listening right now.
So it's a call to action. Reject complacency, challenge deception.
Actively forge that future where governance serves the many, not the few.
A future built on integrity.
Yes. So maybe leave you with this thought. Consider how even small acts, conscious intent, civic engagement, when multiplied across millions, how that ripple effect can reshape not just politics, but maybe the very energetic vibration of a nation, moving us all towards a truly abundant, harmonious future.